The 2021 Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix is done and Max Verstappen has won his 11th race of his career. Now, he was starting on P3, and before we get into what exactly happened in the race, I think we should talk about the conditions because finally we get a wet weather race. Yet again, after Turkey last year, this is a wet weather race. It started off after a spell of rain that had happened at the Imola circuit, and all the drivers, all the tire advantages and disadvantages that people had coming in to the race after day before yesterday's qualifying session all went out of the window because it had rained and all the cars had to start on the intermediate tires. Now, from the off, Lewis Hamilton started on pole, Sergio Perez on P2, and Max Verstappen on P3. Now, traditionally, the Red Bulls do not get off the line very well in wet weather conditions, and the Mercedes have a very good record in wet weather conditions. But contrary to the past, the Red Bulls of Max Verstappen, especially, had a brilliant getaway from the line, and he immediately took P1 from Lewis Hamilton going into turn one. Now, there was a slight bit of contact between Hamilton and Verstappen at the first chicane, and which caused Hamilton a slight amount of damage in his front wing. But as the race progressed, he slowly got used to the damaged car and was able to catch up to Max Verstappen. But then the transition phase of the race happened when you change from intermediates to slicks, and both the cars went on medium tires, and Hamilton was still chasing Max Verstappen. One mistake from Lewis Hamilton caused a big problem for his race. Now, remember, Lewis Hamilton is not one to make many mistakes. I can't even remember the last time he made a mistake, especially of the kind that he made in yesterday's race. He was trying to overtake a few back markers, and in the process went on the wet part of the track with his slick tires and slipped off the track into the gravel trap and broke his front wing as well. Thankfully for him, now he had a bit of good luck after that incident, after he went off the track. His teammate Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. Valtteri Bottas, just to mention for him, he's had a torrid weekend. He was good in practice sessions, but FP3 qualifying session, and even for that matter, the race, he was finding it very, very tough. And his misery, he was put out of his misery rather by George Russell and him colliding immediately after Lewis Hamilton went off the track. That was a heavy collision that brought out the safety car, and eventually the race was red flagged, which gave Hamilton that time to get back to the pits, get his car fixed, and then join the race at the restart after the red flag was completed. He was in P7 at that point. When at the restart, he slowly climbed back up and eventually finished at P2. So Max Verstappen P1, Lewis Hamilton P2 with roughly the 20 to 22 seconds gap. Hamilton, although, was able to get the fastest lap of the race, which meant he still leads the Drivers' Championship by just 1 point. Now, a lot of other things also happened in this race. Case in point, Lando Norris. He grabs his second podium of his career by finishing P3, his joint best result in any Grand Prix so far. Remember, last year in Austria, he had finished P3. This year, again in Imola, he finishes P3, and it was a very different strategy that McLaren used for him, and he stood up to it. Now, at the red flag point, each and every car is allowed to switch tires to anything that they want, and McLaren put the soft tires on Lando Norris's car, and he was able to, overtake Charles Leclerc on the restart. He was at P2 for the longest time before Lewis Hamilton came and overtook that position, but still a very respectable P3 for him. Charlie Leclerc finishing P4, Carlos Sainz finishing P5, a very positive result for Ferrari as well. They've looked strong all weekend. They are slowly getting back into that fight with McLaren in as far as the best of the rest battle is concerned. They're still quite a way back from the likes of Red Bull and Mercedes, but they'll still be happy with the kind of progress that they've shown this weekend. Now, Talking about the second Red Bull, Sergio Perez had a torrid race himself. Now he was starting at P2, but he had quite a lot of incidents during the race where he went off the track. Was not able to find the right kind of grip. He also had a 10-second penalty because he had overtaken a few cars under safety car conditions, which just plummeted him out of the points, and he eventually had to finish up in P12. But his qualifying performance does show that he's starting to get comfortable with the car and might just be a menace once he is fully equipped with all the resources at his disposal. Now, apart from him, Daniel Ricciardo finishing P6, P7 going to Pierre Gasly. Respectable and solid performances by these two as well throughout the weekend. Pierre Gasly putting in a recovery drive after he was put on full wet tires at the start of the race, which was very absurd for many because all the cars were on intermediates, and Gasly for quite a long period of time in the race kept on with his wet tires and he was struggling. The team did not bring him in to change to Inters for the longest time, and that hampered his progress a lot, but he was able to put in recovery drive and eventually get into the points. No further surprises as far as any other results go. George Russell, Valtteri Bottas not able to finish the race along with Nicholas Latifi, who also had a big crash with Nikita Mazepin in the opening few laps of the race. A race that was built up to be a Hamilton versus Verstappen battle. It did happen. We did get to see that battle for quite a few laps in the race, but after Hamilton's mistake, it was Verstappen all the way through. A very solid performance by the Red Bull driver, and Hamilton just doing what he does and able to recover to a solid P2. Next up, the Portuguese Grand Prix. We're going to Portimao for the next race. After there's a week's gap after this, and we will go there for our race number 3 of the season. Until then, keep watching for other sports updates.